आमा लाइभ यो चाहिँ है गाइस यस्तो लाइभ छ ओहो पुरा ड्याम फुटेर आयो यार पुरा चाइनाको ड्याम फुटेर आएर रहेछ ल त्रिशुली बजारै गयो यार ल गयो यार ओ ए सिलास यता यता आऊ यता यता
A catastrophic flash flood and massive mudslides struck the Himalayan border region between Nepal and China on Wednesday, August 26, 2026, leaving at least 17 people dead, dozens missing, and more than 380 tourists stranded or unaccounted for. The disaster centered around the Rasuwagadhi-Gyirong border crossing, where an apparent glacial lake outburst upstream or a massive rock ice avalanche sent a violent torrent of water, mud, and heavy debris crashing through settlements along the Bhotekoshi and Trishuli river corridors. The transboundary surge completely washed away the crucial Miteri Friendship Bridge, submerged customs offices, destroyed vital roads, and wiped out key regional energy infrastructure. Glacial outbursts and avalanches unleash violent torrents along the Bhotekoshi-Trishuli corridor. Raging waters sweep away the Friendship Bridge, customs ports, and critical hydropower infrastructure as bilateral military units coordinate high-risk rescue efforts. A sudden and unprecedented climate disaster has struck the high-altitude frontier separating northern Nepal from China's southwestern Tibet Autonomous Region. A devastating flash flood, compounded by high-velocity mudslides, ripped through the Himalayan border mountain passes early Wednesday morning, August 26, 2026. Initial casualty counts stand at 17 confirmed deaths, but emergency authorities on both sides of the international border warn that the figure is almost certain to rise dramatically. At least 384 tourists and trekkers have been reported missing within the hyper-popular Langtang and Kailash transit routes, triggering a large-scale transboundary mobilization of military aircraft, armed police forces, and specialized high-altitude rescue personnel. The disaster unfolded with terrifying speed at approximately 5 a.m. local time on Wednesday. Residents and trade workers in the frontline border settlements of Timure and Siabrubesi in Nepal's mountainous Rasuwa district were woken by a deafening roar echoing from the higher mountain peaks across the border in Tibet. Suman Chalis, a 34-year-old schoolteacher stationed in the neighboring Nuakot district, provided a heart-wrenching eyewitness report to international news agencies. The sheer volume of the water was unnatural. I watched from an elevated ridge as a brown wall of mud and massive boulders crashed through the mountain valley. The flood swept away 8 or 9 massive cargo trucks like they were children's toys, alongside houses and screaming people. It was absolutely heart-wrenching. In all my years living in these rugged mountains, I have never witnessed such complete and instantaneous structural devastation. According to official reports consolidated by the Nepal Tourism Board and the Armed Police Force, APF, 17 individuals have been certified dead, with bodies recovered from the muddy banks of the Trishuli River. At least 18 people remain missing at the immediate border zone, including 9 armed police force personnel, whose defensive border outpost was entirely overwhelmed by the initial torrent. An estimated 384 to 400 travelers, including numerous foreign nationals holding European, Asian, and American passports, have completely lost communication. The Rasuwagadhi-Gyirong border corridor is an economically and culturally vital geographical arterial route. It serves as the secondary gateway for global adventurers trekking into the world-renowned Langtang Valley National Park, the primary overland transit highway for pilgrims and international travelers journeying toward Mount Kailash and the sacred Lake Mansarovar located inside Chinese Tibet. Because the sudden mudslide severed all local telecommunication lines, cell towers, and physical roads simultaneously, hundreds of hikers are currently isolated in remote tea houses and high-altitude base camps. The sheer physical kinetic force of the flash flood has effectively erased the primary land conduit for commerce between Nepal and China. The iconic Miteri Friendship Bridge, spanning the roaring Lendi River and physically linking Nepal's customs checkpoint to China's Gyirong port, has been completely snapped from its concrete foundations and swept downstream. This renders any immediate vehicular or pedestrian crossing completely impossible. Nepal's Ministry of Energy, Water Resources, and Irrigation issued a grave update regarding the national electricity grid. The floodwaters heavily damaged the intake gates, headworks, and transmission lines of the Rasuwagadhi hydropower project, alongside several downstream solar and hydro installations. By taking 430 megawatts offline instantly, the country has lost approximately 12% of its total domestic power generation capacity, prompting immediate rolling blackouts across parts of the Bagmati province, including parts of the capital city, Kathmandu. While South Asia is traditionally accustomed to monsoon rains between June and September, meteorologists from the Department of Hydrology and Meteorology highlighted a deeply concerning anomaly. The flash flood was not caused by local rainfall within Nepalese territory. Sarthak Shrestha, a remote sensing and geoinformation analyst at the Kathmandu-based International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICMOD, shed light on the structural collapse of the mountain. Our initial satellite sweeps and preliminary geographic data assessments showed no anomalous rainfall patterns on the Tibetan plateau immediately preceding the event. Instead, we believe a severe rock ice avalanche occurred at a highly unstable altitude within the high Himalayas. This mass of frozen debris collapsed directly into the upper catchment of the Lendi River, creating a transient, artificial dam. When that unstable blockage burst under immense hydrostatic pressure, it caused a cascading, high-velocity transboundary flood event. Other regional experts, including Shailendra Thapa, spokesperson for the armed police force, noted that the sudden surge aligns perfectly with a glacial lake outburst flood, GLOF. This phenomenon occurs when a glacial lake retained by unstable loose soil or ice moraines suddenly breaches due to rapid climate warming, venting millions of cubic meters of water in minutes. In response to the scale of the emergency, both the Nepalese and Chinese governments have bypassed standard diplomatic delays to orchestrate a high-stakes, multi-branch rescue operation. Nepalese Prime Minister Balendra Shah convened an emergency session of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Under his direct executive authorization, the Nepal Army, Nepal Police, and the Armed Police Force have been deployed en masse to the frontier. Army helicopters were scrambled to locate the missing tourist clusters. However, the initial waves of aircraft faced severe difficulties. The river water levels were so high and the flying visibility through the narrow mountain valleys so treacherous that pilots were initially unable to touch down in the worst hit zones of Timure and Siabrubesi. Despite these immense hurdles, ground rescue personnel managed to construct a high-risk extraction route across a remaining suspension bridge near the damaged Rasuwagadhi hydropower dam. Through this operation, 55 stranded individuals, including 4 women, 51 men, and 1 Chinese national, were successfully moved across the roaring waters to safety. Across the border in Tibet, the disaster struck with equal ferocity. The massive mudslide plowed directly into Gyirong port in the Shigatse region, completely severing all local roads, power lines, and communication grids. Chinese President Xi Jinping issued an immediate, high-priority public directive broadcast via the state network, CCTV, and Xinhua News Agency. President Xi stated that the most urgent and non-negotiable task is doing everything humanly possible to search for and rescue the missing people, quickly treat the injured, and minimize further casualties to the greatest extent possible. Consequently, the traffic authorities in Tibet's Shigatse district immediately declared all roads leading toward the Nepalese border strictly unsafe and completely closed to civilian passage, dedicating 100% of road capacity to heavy earth movers and military rescue convoys trying to re-establish a lifeline to the frontier port. As the massive slug of mud, debris, and water moves past the mountainous topography of Rasuwa, it is expanding into a broader regional threat for central and southern Nepal. Home Minister Sudan Gurung delivered an urgent emergency notice to the parliament and issued a nationwide public alert. The government has enacted the following immediate safety protocols. All families residing on the low-lying banks or floodplains of the Bhotekoshi and Trishuli rivers across 5 critical districts, Rasuwa, Nuwakot, Dading, Gorkha, and Chitwan, must immediately move to designated high-ground shelters. To prevent civilian vehicles from being trapped or crushed by secondary landslides, the government has enforced a strict, non-negotiable travel suspension on key transit lifelines, including the Prithvi Highway, the Galchi Nuwakot Rasuwa, Shiabru Basi Road, the Muglin Narayang Hat Road. A centralized, toll-free national disaster helpline, 1234, has been established for citizens requiring immediate search, rescue, or medical evacuation coordination. Government hospitals and military medical clinics across Kathmandu and central Nepal have cleared their wards and stand completely prepared to receive incoming airlifted casualties as soon as weather conditions stabilize. This catastrophic event is not an isolated incident of bad luck. Climate scientists and transboundary environmental experts note that the frequency and destructive intensity of these sudden Himalayan floods have risen sharply over the last decade due to accelerated global climate change. Changgong Zhang, a leading specialist in climate and environmental risks at the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, issued a stern warning regarding the immediate future. The immediate danger is far from over. Our satellite imagery indicates that a massive structural blockage of rocks, fractured glacial ice, and timber remains dangerously lodged upstream on the river, dividing the Nepal-China border. Until this unstable blockage is systematically cleared or safely breached, downstream authorities must remain on the absolute highest alert. A second, equally devastating flash flood wave could be triggered at any moment. The tragedy highlights a critical structural flaw in regional safety: the absolute necessity for real-time data sharing between China and Nepal. Because these river basins are completely transboundary, any sudden glacier collapse or landslide in the upper Tibetan catchment requires an automated, satellite-linked early warning system that can alert riverside communities downstream in Nepal within minutes. Without such cross-border scientific integration, mountain communities will continue to face the brunt of an unpredictable climate crisis. As night falls over the Himalayas, rescue teams from both nations continue to work against the clock under freezing rain, searching for signs of life beneath the mud. Meanwhile, 8 Koreans have become unreachable, and 10 stranded after flash floods struck Nepal, Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said on Wednesday. We lost contact with 8 Korean employees of Korea Southeast Power and Doosan Enerbility, who were working on the construction of a hydropower plant in the Rasuwa region, after the area was flooded on Wednesday morning, the ministry said. Heavy rainfall caused floods in Bagmati in north-central Nepal, according to Reuters and other reports. The affected area is about 120 kilometers, 74 miles, north of the capital, Kathmandu. It noted that the Nepali government has dispatched a rescue team comprising military and police personnel to the affected site. The Nepali government has sent a helicopter to rescue another 10 Korean employees of Doosan Enerbility who remain stranded in the area, the ministry added. The Korean embassy in Nepal notified the Nepali government immediately after learning that 8 Korean nationals had become unreachable and requested a swift and extensive search and rescue operation. The embassy also dispatched a consular official to the scene. The Korean government has also set up an emergency response unit headed by the foreign minister. Meanwhile, President Lee Jae Myung ordered an all-out response and a joint response team from the Foreign Ministry, National Fire Agency, and National Police Agency to be dispatched to Nepal as soon as possible. Please mobilize every available resource to search for and rescue missing people, with the lives and safety of Koreans as the top priority, President Lee ordered after being briefed on the situation, according to presidential spokesperson Kang Yu-jung. Work closely with the Nepali government and local authorities, provide full support to the families of the missing, ensure the safety of Koreans in the area, and do everything possible to prevent further harm, Lee said. Doosan Enerbility also stated that corporate efforts to rescue missing employees are underway. We have confirmed that some employees remain unreachable at the Upper Trishuli 1 hydroelectric power plant construction site, where our company is handling EPC work, Doosan Enerbility said. EPC stands for Engineering, Procurement, and Construction. A total of 20 Korean employees are stationed there, and 5 of the 15 who were there when the disaster struck remain uncontactable, it continued. We immediately set up an emergency response headquarters to assess the situation and respond to the accident. And we will also dispatch a response team led by CEO Young Yeon-in to the site. We will work closely with the relevant authorities and project partners and do everything that we can to support search and rescue efforts for those missing. The state-run Korea Southeast Power also launched an emergency response after losing contact with 3 employees at the site. 7 employees in total were stationed in Nepal. Our overseas business team is leading efforts to reach the employees, and we are taking all necessary measures under our emergency response procedures, a Korea Southeast Power official said.